Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Gym Owners Fitness Business Podcast, proudly supported by Superfit Grow, Home Marketing and Impact Training. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Russell Harrison, the CEO of Spartans Boxing, a rapidly expanding gym franchise that has made a significant impact in the fitness industry. Under Russell's leadership, Spartans Boxing has not only grown in size, but also in reputation. Known for its community-driven approach and innovative training methods with a deep passion for fitness and commitment to empowering individuals through boxing. Russell has successfully built a brand that resonates with people from all walks of life. We're excited to dive into this journey, the challenges he's faced, and what's next for Spartans Boxing. Welcome to the show, Russell.
Thanks, Mel. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm excited to chat.
You're very welcome. And just for our listeners, we were just chatting offline, and Russell and I have walked the streets as teenagers in the same areas. So that was really interesting conversation. So hence why it's so amazing to see your journey. You must be so proud of what's gone on over the last few years with Spartans Boxing.
It's funny, Mel, because when I meet someone that's also from, we'll shout it out, the northern suburbs of Melbourne, I quite often try and tell the story of how that shapes you in life and in business. And a lot of people don't quite get it, but you do.
I totally get it. It toughens you up. And I think that's why people like you and I just jump the obstacles and just go right round them. Don't let the walls stop us. We say how we see it. But at the same time, we're passionate. We want to help people and we love what we do.
Absolutely. 100%.
So let's kick off the journey with the background of Spartans Boxing and the vision. What inspired you to create Spartans Boxing?
Well, it's a long story. I'll try and give you the long story, not too long. So look, for me personally, and again, going back to the northern suburbs of Melbourne, like all Aussie kids, I was involved in sports from young. My parents put me into martial arts when I was 8 years old. The first boxing gym that I ever joined was actually in Heidelberg West, which we were just talking about before. It was in a little rundown scout hall down on the creek there. So I was involved in sports and martial arts and got involved in boxing as a kid. I had uncles who were boxers. So they were keen to sort of see me get involved and put the gloves on. And I played footy and played cricket and did all the stuff that Aussie kids do. But sport for me was always, I did it at a decent level, but I made my parents happy and I went to uni and I got a real job. And so, as we do, right? And so, I worked for 15 years in recruitment. So that was kind of my real job. That's what moved me to Singapore 14 years ago. I moved here. And I was running businesses across Asia Pacific, but always kept a toe in the water with boxing, competed at a few different levels, was coaching. But it was always something that I did on the side. It was my side gig. It was my love. It was my passion. In 2015, I met my now business partner, a guy by the name of Naz Musa. And in fact, I'd love to take all the credit, but the launching of Spartans, it was his sort of brainchild, if you like. Naz is a serial entrepreneur. He's worked across the world with different startups and some okay exits, which always helps. And at that stage, he was in Singapore. He just sold a business, and he decided that he wanted to fill a gap in the market in Singapore, which was to have a boxing gym that was accessible for everybody. All the gyms at that stage then were sort of griping over who was the meanest, the toughest, and the baddest.
As they do.
As they do. And so Spartans was born out of very much the opposite. It was about making a boxing gym that was friendly, inclusive. It was in the community to make people feel welcome who had never boxed before. And if you go a little bit further back in terms of Naz's story, he found boxing back in, I think, 2006. He was really overweight. Was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and the doctor said, sort yourself out or else. And so he found boxing. He was living in Dubai at that stage. And part of that journey, he got involved. He started boxing. He signed up for a white collar boxing match. He lost 40 kilos, fell in love with the sport. And so he firsthand experienced the transformational power of boxing. And so when he and I came together, you had two guys who, first and foremost, were business guys, for want of a better term, like we're running businesses. But we had a love and a passion for boxing. But we thought that there was a much better way to do it than the old kind of, tough, smelly, spit and sawdust kind of
Yes.
gyms that I grew up in. And so that's how Spartans was born, really. And, we did, if you look back now, this was 9 years ago when we launched the first gym. We didn't know what boutique fitness was then. Like, we weren't talking about boutique fitness. We were talking about operating, a single boxing gym and just doing it really well. So we were doing, boxing classes for kids and families and for women. And, the ethos was, if you bring kids, they'll bring families. And if you bring families, they'll build communities. And we built it around that kind of sports club mentality that you find in Australia. And so the first gym became, and it's still there now, almost 10 years later, it became a real feature of the local community. And then, after I think about the first year or so, we started to assess it as a business. And the metrics were great from a business standpoint. We had OPEX break even position really early. We were profitable from year one. So we were both clever enough to know, hey, this is a pretty special kind of business. And then we sort of embarked on this journey that we're on now, which is now, boutique fitness franchising.
It's very interesting because, like you said, like 10 years ago, you didn't even know what boutique fitness is. And the reality is we're all doing boutique fitness.
Correct, yeah.
No matter how big our clubs are, whether they're, I'll talk in square meters, but whether they're 250 square meters or they're 1,500 square meters, we're all doing boutique fitness because we have several business models under our roof. It's not just one business model. We have several. So tell me, Russell, talk to me about the growth and the strategies that you've had to put in place that were like non-negotiables in order to have successful franchises.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably the first thing, right? So back in 2018, when we were making the decision about how do we grow the business, we did a little bit of work then with Enterprise Singapore, which is like a government agency here that helps businesses expand and go into different markets and all that sort of stuff. So they helped us with a bit of research. And that first bit of research was, if you go out and own, operate and bootstrap and do it all on your own, this is where you can get to. Or if you look at franchising and you build a franchise model, here is how you can scale it. So for us, franchising was the way we decided to go. And we decided that pretty much from the get-go. So we opened our second location in 2018, which was a very rough cut version of a franchise. Still there today, which I'm really proud to say. We lent into the fact that we wanted to be a franchise business. Now, in 2019, end of 2019, Naz and I had a meeting, and we made the decision that one of us had to lean into this. And so I threw away my 15-year career in recruitment and decided that I was going to move into this as my full-time gig. So that was, I can remember it vividly because that was October 2019. And then we know what happened shortly after that, right? So we opened the third and fourth gyms in Singapore in early 2020, and then COVID hit, right? And so I was sitting there going, shit, that was a stupid idea. Anxiety levels to the max. And I'm careful how I say this because I know COVID was a really, really tricky period for everyone, but COVID for us was definitely needed because we got to sit still and we got to really look at what world-class franchises were doing. And then we started to do all of the things that we needed to do to be able to scale the business properly. So we completely digitized the customer experience from app to CRM to dashboards to analytics, payment gateways and all of that kind of stuff. And then we did another project with Enterprise Singapore at that stage where we built our digitized franchise management system. And so that's the backbone of the business. You know, your training, your onboarding, you know, your business management dashboards, everything that the franchise needs to sort of keep the thing together. And so COVID was good. We had time to do that. But then the thing that we did mostly during COVID was we lent into this thing called community, which we were talking about since we started, right? That we knew that was our secret sauce. I know a lot of people talk about that now, but for us, it was really, hey, look, you know, how do we build communities, and what have we done well to do that? And so we lent into that during COVID. We really brought people together. You know, we launched an online reality TV show, and sort of we were, you know, podcasting with different athletes and celebs and all this kind of stuff. We just did a bunch of stuff to bring people together. And so as we came out of COVID, we rapidly expanded. And so, you know, we're now 10 locations in Singapore. We launched in Dubai, October 2021, which was sort of us to go, okay, we're an international brand now. Does this actually work? It did. So we've grown from, we're 5 gyms open in Dubai now. We've got another 4 scheduled for opening in Dubai. We launched our white collar boxing events, which then really laid grounding to the pillars of our business, which make what we are today. So we've got gyms, we've got events, and then probably a long way to answer your question is we've also got a boxing academy. And so our boxing academy is the area of our business, the education arm, where we're making sure that coaches are doing things the way that they should be doing them. And like everyone likes to think that they're special, right? And everyone likes to think that their businesses are special. Yes. But, you know, in boxing, you know, I sound like a broken record when I say it, but, you know, a good boxer doesn't necessarily make a good coach, and a good coach doesn't necessarily make a good coach in a Spartans environment, because, you know, we're not just teaching fighters, we're teaching kids and women, and we're trying to do it in a safe, inclusive manner. So there's a bit that goes into it. So for me, the academy was really one of the key non-negotiables to make sure that the quality and standards of coaching across the board in our business was ticking the boxes wherever we were, whether we were in Dubai or Singapore. And so we've subsequently, now we're in 5 countries. So we've landed in the Philippines, Cambodia, opened our first gym in Oz, in northern suburbs of Melbourne. Just to,
unlimited terrain.
Not we went further out. But around Ivanhoe was definitely on our radar.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we're in our first one's in South Morang. So we opened that just a few months ago. And, you know, as suspected, community's the secret sauce again, right? So just getting involved with all of the footy clubs and the sports clubs and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, long story long.
But I mean, it's everybody's success is a story, and we need to listen to more stories. One of the things that I noticed that you consistently said then was community. And as we know, lots of people say, I have a great community. But to you, if you were to walk into somebody else's studio or club, what would be something that would stand out that would say to you, yes, this is community?
That's a great question. Look, I think, and it's really simple stuff, right? Like, and this is what we started doing back then, and then we had to obviously systemize it and put it into a process. But, you know, simple stuff like knowing your name when you walk in the door, shaking hands. You know, in a boxing gym, it's asking people to come in and making them feel welcome rather than sizing them up as if they're going to get punched up, right? So, you know, depends. Some gyms, maybe some people are huggers. I don't know. But at least a fist bump and a first name.
I'm not a hugger.
You're not a hugger?
That's the living grey coming out of me.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's pretty, yeah. But look, our industry's full of huggers, right? So,
yes.
So, you know, for me, like, that's one of the telltale signs. But for us in our business, right, we've kind of, we've tried to, and, you know, our global CMO uses this term and I love it. We've tried to codify community as much as we can. So depending on where we are in the world, there's still that sort of consistency across the board. And, you know, I've always sort of wrapped it up into 3 tiers. You know, one is what we call Spartans community. And, you know, that's whether it's Spartans or, you know, change that name for the name of your club. right? But just making sure that people feel like that place is home, it's a family. As I said, first name basis, how's the kids, et cetera, right? So just making sure that the club is home. The second one for me is what we call local. And we sort of have a system and a process where we ask all of our gyms in their local area, they have to immerse themselves in the local area, right? So, tie-ups with local businesses and, making sure that you're setting up a network around the area. And obviously that's great because there's a bunch of customers there you could potentially get your hands on, right? So that's nice. But also it's about, members' benefits and, all that sort of stuff. So, making sure that you really immerse yourself in that local community. And then a really important one for us is grassroots. And so because boxing, the roots are in the sport, if you like. So we make sure that the grassroots portion of it is, we do community-based local boxing events. We are affiliated with all of the local boxing bodies. So in Singapore, it's the Singapore Boxing Federation. UAE, it's the UAE Boxing Federation. In Oz, it's Boxing Victoria. So whatever the local boxing body is, we get involved and we try and work with developing athletes and the sport from the ground up. And so when you kind of put all those things in, and I tell all my franchise owners, you got to do all the things all at once, all the time. Right? That's the secret sauce.
It's the secret sauce.
Right? But for me, if you're doing all of those things, you've got no choice but to build an amazing community.
So you've given us the recipe for community. Let's talk community, but what type of technology are you using within your club that keeps that community still going on?
Yeah, look, that's a really great question. I think, and my guys will hate me for this, but we first and foremost, we start with simple stuff, right? So each one of our gyms has got a WhatsApp community, right? And so, not that everybody needs another WhatsApp group in their life. I know in Oz, people aren't as heavy WhatsApp users. I message my family in Oz and it takes them like a week to reply to the message. But in Asia, it's WhatsApp or it's Telegram or it's Viber or something, right? So each one of our gyms has got an online community through those various chat channels. In terms of the technology that we use, we've used Glowfox as far as just, keeping members engaged with attendance and all of that sort of, the basic kind of stuff. In the gyms themselves. So I was very, very careful with the type of technology that I wanted to use, if we call it a retention tool, right? I'm a boxing purist at heart. And so I was very careful when we were looking at technologies as retention tools to make sure that they specifically spoke to what we were, which is, we're in the boxing modality. And so we use Impact Wrap in all of our gyms, which is a tool to be able to, count the number of punches that you throw and how hard you hit. And it's all about, engaging members. It's all about tracking progress. It's all about gamification, right? And so when you've got, it's around about 90% of our members, they just come for fun, fitness, and community. Those sorts of tools are really, really powerful to keep people engaged and keep them coming back. We've got another crazy bunch, about 10% of our membership are the guys that say, yeah, actually, I want to go and pursue this for competition.
Oh, wow.
And so we've got some really decorated amateur and professional boxers that we've developed over the years in Singapore, the UAE. And that could be amateur, professional. We do white collar boxing as well. So in addition to, the technology that talks to the masses in our sort of membership base, there's also this really unique avenue of people sort of wanting to go off and pursue competition. So yeah, it's a pretty cool, when you get all of those things working all at once, it's really amazing to see how members sort of, interact depending on what it is that they're doing and what their goals are.
What does a typical franchisee look like?
Oof, good question. For our single unit owners, they're typically somebody who has got a day job.
Yep.
Right. So we call them an active investor. They're working in their day job, usually quite senior and accomplished in what they do. And they've got a connection or a love with health and fitness, not necessarily boxing, but health and fitness. And so for those people, they're typically, they're spending not all of their working time in the gyms, and they've got a team, but they're definitely involved in the key stuff like building community, engaging their teams, looking after the numbers, all that sort of stuff. So that's for our single unit owners. For our multi-unit owners, they are typically people who have ran businesses, not necessarily health and fitness again, but they've got an understanding of running multi-functions across business. And so, they've decided that they want to build their little gym empire, which is quite cool. And so I would say that they're probably just a higher level of business acumen in those type of franchise owners. Yeah. And then we've got a bunch of owner operators. Now, in my opinion, if I was going to do a single unit gym, owner operator is undoubtedly the best model. The people are living, breathing, absolutely involved in every facet of the gym. And those gyms are, clearly they are more successful when there's an owner operator in there, right? You can't beat passion. So they're a couple of the typical profiles. Master franchises for us, we've only just signed our first master franchise for Vietnam, which has literally just happened. So again, we're talking to people who are, I guess, senior and accomplished business professionals who've got the ability to be able to build and scale a business. Not necessarily, again, in health and fitness, but that's the expertise that they've got. So as much as we talk about when I answer questions like that, it sort of hits us that, we've been doing this for a while, but we're still really babies in the game. So it's interesting. I don't know if I've cracked the code yet in terms of what a fantastic franchise owner looks like. I kind of put my recruitment hat on, which was, 15 odd years career before this. And, even with the best will in the world, the best systems, processes, et cetera, people will always surprise you in good and bad ways.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that one. So what I got out of that was that if really anybody can open up a Spartans boxing studio, you don't have to have a deep passion for boxing. Obviously, you want to have a deep passion for health and fitness. But if you're somebody that looks and say, I'm someone that looks out there that at opportunities, and I might look at something, Spartans boxing. Wow, I'm not a boxer. I'm not really in the health and fitness industry, but I know that everybody's loving the health and fitness industry at the moment. And I feel that that's a good concept. I can be that type of person that can come along to say, hey, Russell, I'm really keen of opening up, a boxing studio.
Yeah, we've had some great successes with that kind of profile. So people, and, it depends what you call it. I think there's some, I guess with everything that's going on in the world, there's a real move for people to want to, find their ikigai or their triple Ps or, whatever you want to call it, but just being able to merge the sort of, purpose, passion, profit, sort of rolling it all into one. And so we've had some great successes of people that have done exactly what you just mentioned. They've said, hey, look, I really like the business model. I can see the merits in the business model. I've got a passion for business. And, they get to know the boxing and fitness space as they go. And so that's worked really well. Now, conversely, people who have been involved in boxing and fitness have also provided to be great franchise owners for us as well.
Cool. So just before I move quickly to the next question, do you envisage Spartans opening up studios, let's say in universities or secondary schools, or, the bottom of hotel units? Because I look at boxing as a really great tool to help people with that suffer from anxiety, social interaction issues, and, fitness is all about the social side of it. Do you envisage that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. It's a great question for me. Look, so a few things on that what you just mentioned. So number one is, since we started, we've always done school programs. So we do boxing in schools, and we do that in Singapore and in the UAE. And so that's always been part of that. So schools, most definitely. In Cambodia, we have a really interesting concept where our gym is actually in a hotel. It's in a luxury hotel. And they've put that in there because, they wanted a concept. They wanted members to be able to have an experience when, they're not just going in there and just doing weights. So we've done the hotel concept as well. So to answer your question, yes. I think probably the thing that we've really lent into even further than that is we've got a part of our business which is called Spartans Mind. All right. And so we have, I always give him shout outs when we're talking about this, but there's a guy who is in our group called Dr. Paul Englert. So Paul is a psychologist. He's done a body of work in and around youths and leadership and all that sort of stuff. I've actually got, there you go, shout out for him. He's written his book here. It's called Future Selves. This is it's a sort of a set of cognitive beliefs around how people build their future self. And so in Spartans Mind, we've built youth programs that link boxing programs to future selves as a whole sort of counseling program. And so we're one of the first fitness businesses that I know of globally who have linked, actual bodies of research and counseling programs into the sports programs. So we do that in Singapore with a local not-for-profit charity organization here called Impart SG. And so we've got two programs that we run with them. One is called Project Grit. So that's where we run these 12-week programs for kids, future selves plus boxing. We've got that's for youths, so they're 13 to 19 years old. And then we've got another one called Project Brawl, which is for kids. So the kids are 6 to 12 years old. And then we also do another one, which I don't know why we haven't given it a name, but we do it for ex-offenders as well. And so it's basically, as you said, it's all looking at thinking about this concept of holistic wellness, right? Which is obviously a huge portion now around mental health and mental wellness. And so just linking in programs that bring all of that together. And I think for me, this is going to be one of the key things that we do as we grow in Australia, because I know that Oz, in terms of the thinking, in comparison to, say, countries like Singapore, etc., I think that the thinking in Australia, it's a lot more primed for these sorts of programs.
I think a great name for your program that you don't have a name for, something like on the road to betterment or on the road to greatness, because they've come from a negative place and you want to send them on a journey to a positive place. So I think that maybe consider something like that.
I'm going to tag in the marketing team on this afterwards.
People in the industry will say Mel is full of ideas, and you can either take a little bit or take a whole lot. But and I love doing that stuff. But enough about me. Anyway, so really briefly, before we talk about your future goals and your vision, let's talk about some of the challenges as a CEO. How do you balance life as a CEO and then go home to family?
Should I call in my wife?
Yeah, because I want to know how you don't talk shop.
Well, funnily enough, my wife is a boxer and a boxing coach, so we talk a lot of shop.
You talk a lot.
We talk a lot of shop, but at the moment we've got a 2-week-old newborn. So
congratulations.
Yeah. So look, how do I balance it? I think probably maybe like a lot of CEOs, I'm more interested in work-life integration than work-life balance.
Yeah.
So I feel incredibly privileged that my job now is to, go around the world, give people an opportunity to be an entrepreneur, have their own business, their own boxing gym. I get to, run academies to recruit and train coaches. I get to go to boxing events. So I feel privileged that what I'm doing is, it's a real passion for me. And as I said, I sort of ditched the real career 5 years ago now to do this. So for me, it's very much about work-life integration. But like anybody that's running their own business, right? Like it's a round the clock gig. Right. I'm sure you're
24/7.
it's 24/7, right? So there is no real off button.
No. You
So,
can be out of the restaurant at 10 o'clock at night, Russell, and someone says, my fob doesn't work.
exactly, right? Exactly. But I look, the guys in my business, I'm known as the eternal optimist. And so even, if I'm in the midst of a really challenging period in the business, um, I feel, again, incredibly privileged because, what is also included in my day is I train every day, right? I train 6 days a week, right? And those training slots are just as important and vital in my calendar as any other meeting, right? So I never miss training 6 days a week, right? So, and you do that because you're in this industry, right? So I think that's probably the way that I manage it. The challenges that I have, I think, are probably not dissimilar to most definitely other fitness businesses, but also all businesses around the world. We're in a people business. So, trying to always get people who are the right people for the business, believe in the broader vision. In boxing especially, because, we're sort of trailblazing in terms of what we're doing. We have to constantly remind people who are in our business, hey, this is a global brand. What we're trying to do here is much bigger than just the local boxing gym down on the corner. And so, trying to get people who have got the knowledge and passion for boxing, but also being able to see a broader vision. Sometimes those two things are mutually exclusive. So, people are probably the biggest challenge for us. And, again, I'm probably talking for every single business owner or CEO who's trying to scale a business, whether it's scale it locally or globally, growing pains with scale, whether it be funding, whether it be compliance, there's a whole bunch of things. I just try to be the eternal optimist and just take it all as, look, this is part of the journey.
Yeah, I love that. And it's all part of the journey, isn't it? I mean, every day you get up and there's something new happening. There might be a new obstacle or an old obstacle, but you just keep moving forward and you don't let other individuals get in your way either. If you've got a vision, you aim for that. So talking about a vision, what are the plans for Spartans let's talk about the next 18 months.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, look, we're hyper focused now on two regions, Asia Pacific and the GCC, in the Middle East. So in the existing markets that we're in now, so Singapore, Australia, Philippines, Cambodia, the order of the day is to expand the gym network in those countries. So that's in the Asia Pacific region. And also, as I'd mentioned, we've got Vietnam now on the horizon for us as a new market. So it's to continue to scale the gyms in those markets. In the GCC region, where things have happened incredibly fast for us. So as I mentioned before, we only launched in October 2021. We've already got 9 gyms in Dubai sort of open or in the pipe. Saudi focus. So we're in fairly advanced conversations to get into Saudi. So that's the gyms. Continue to, go into key new markets and expand the markets that we're in right now. For our events, which is our white collar boxing events. So, for the unaccustomed, these events are for people who have never boxed before. Just the average person that comes in off the gym, into the gym off the street. They're typically high level working professionals. I say to everybody, some people want to climb Everest and some people want a marathon. And then there's a crazy bunch out there that want to have a fight. And so we basically take these people in, we put them through a training camp. And at the end of it, we put on a huge black tie event. So we've done 6 of these in Dubai. We've got our 7th one coming up in Singapore in October this year. And our event schedule, what it looks like is we'll run 2 white collar events in each country that we've got gyms every year. So our events business this year goes from 3 events. Next year it'll go to 6. And then very quickly we sort of end up doing 12 plus events per year. And our academy is really interesting. So we've built a whole bunch of IP in our academy for 2 reasons, really. One is around quality and standards with our own coaches. And then the other one is, this is a revenue stream for us. These boxing courses are courses that members and public can buy from us. And so our strategy with the academy is really simple. We're not creating all of the content now. We're creating more of a portal. And so we're currently in conversations with some of the largest boxing educators in the world, where the Spartans Boxing Academy becomes the portal to get access to boxing education. So each one of those arms, I was meeting with my marketing manager yesterday, and we're talking about the marketing plans for each, and he turned a little bit pale. We've got a lot of work to do.
Just write down 2 notes for your marketing team while you're talking. I was grabbing a pen to write it down. Yes.
And we do what most small businesses, and we think and act like a startup, and so we do everything very, very lean. And so this whole concept of work-life integration is very familiar to all of my guys.
Let me ask you, Russell. So your events that you're doing, you may have already done this, but have you considered running an event inside a fitness expo? So, like, for example, Sean Krenz is running the Oz Fitness Expo in October in Sydney. He'll have a trade floor show to show off the Spartans Boxing brand. Have you thought about doing something like that?
We haven't, actually, but I do love it.
Okay.
I do love it. We do.
Voice
So
in the mail.
yeah, right. No, you're gonna have to send me a couple of invoices from this call.
But no, in all honesty, like, look at your business model a little bit like, High Rocks and the CrossFit Games. Why can't you have, Spartans Boxing running off the trade floor show of an expo? You get to show the franchise side of it, and then you get to run an event. And everybody, as you know, loves fitness events, the physical side of it, and they're going to come and watch. So it's going to help the brand grow. And the other thing, go ahead. Your marketing team that I hope are listening now. So guys, get in touch with Nigel Benton at Australasian Leisure Management magazine. Because if you've just opened your first location out near South Morang, he would love to do a press release on that. And Russell Harrison, the guy from the northern suburbs of Victoria, gone global with a brand. So there's an incredible story right there for you.
Wow. Thank you. That's fantastic. I appreciate that.
Okay.
I think the you just mentioned sort of High Rocks, right? And the sort of events. And, that's one of the things for us is that we wanted to have underneath our group, we wanted to have these arms because each of them obviously feed into each other, right? So, the franchise gyms, they are people that go into our events. The events, we've actually had some franchise owners that have come from people that have done white collar boxing. The academy sort of feeds the whole thing. So we've created this really unique infrastructure. But I think probably the thing that you've said, which is I love it, like trying to do it inside of these other events, but that probably wouldn't be our white collar events because these are like black tie gala events. But we also do sort of community boxing events. And the idea is to showcase, boxing. And so I think that could be, I love it.
Absolutely, because everybody learns differently in life, and the same can be said when we go to purchase product. Some can purchase, off a bit of paper, they've read about it, and then some see it visually and go, yeah, that's for me, I want to do that. Yep,
agreed.
Well, we've had a really interesting discussion today, haven't we?
Time's flown.
It has flown. You've got an incredible story. You've got some amazing, future goals and vision. You've got the academy happening, your first location here in Oz. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention on today's podcast?
No, I mean, I just want to thank you for your time, Mel. As I said, we've sort of bumped into each other a few times, but we hadn't had a chance to do this. So I really appreciate the time. And of course, if anybody in Oz is listening, we're new there, and there's first movers advantage in terms of what we do as we sort of grow and scale in Australia. Australia will be for us globally our largest market over the next 5 years. So I think kudos to all the Aussie brands, because Australia is just now such a great market for fitness, and there's a really high benchmark set in Australia. And so we're just really, really excited to be there, and I'm looking forward to, continuing to expand there.
So, will you be at Oz Fitness Expo? Will you be at Beyond Active in Sydney? Where could somebody physically catch up with you?
Yes, I'll be Beyond Active in Sydney. So I'm talking on one of the panels there. So that's in December. I will probably be in Melbourne within the next couple of months. I'm just trying to arrange dates. Newborn, so the travel schedule took a backseat for a while, but I'll definitely be at Beyond Active in December in Sydney.
Fantastic. That's amazing. Now, if somebody wants to catch up with you, you're on LinkedIn?
Yep, they can get me on LinkedIn, Russell Harrison. They could email me directly. It's just russ@spartansboxing.com. Or they can find us on any of our socials, spartansboxing.com, or Instagram is @boxingspartans.
I'll drop all of those links at the bottom of our podcast. This afternoon, we spoke to Russell Harrison, the CEO of Spartans Boxing. As I said, the Gym Owners Fitness Business Podcast is proudly supported and sponsored by Michael and Benji at Superfit Grow, Richard Tudiani at Com Marketing, and Steve Jensen at Impact Training. Thank you, Russell, for joining me on the Gym Owners Fitness Business Podcast.
Thanks again, Mel. Cheers.